evening and welcome to Crossroads. The manifesto of the Nashville school shooters finally been made public, and this was not officially released. It was leaked to conservative show host Steven Crowder, who then released it online. And what it shows is a concerning development for the country itself, and confirms also what many people suspected. Audrey Hale, the 28-year-old transgender woman who murdered 3 children and 3 adults at the Covenant School in March, well, it appears she had been radicalized by narratives against white people. According to Hale's notebook, she specifically aimed to kill white children. She framed the kids as being wealthy and claimed they had white privileges. Nashville Chief of Police John Drake has since confirmed the legitimacy of the documents. He wrote that he was disturbed that the manifesto was leaked. And he added, "We're not at liberty to release the journals until the courts rule." And he also said that his department will legally go after the people responsible for the leak. Now, after the release, 7 Nashville police officers were put on administrative duty, allegedly to protect the integrity of the active, progressing investigation into who leaked the documents. But regardless, the leak exposed Hale's motivations, and they're raising now serious concerns both over why it was withheld from the public and what it shows about anti-white racism that is being pushed right now throughout the states in the U.S. Now, as we've been reportedly told by the pro-censorship lobby, it does seem, in fact, that words do have consequences, at least in this case. Many people commented after the documents were released that Hale, she was likely radicalized by hateful narratives being pushed all around the country. Elon Musk wrote that she was clearly mentally ill, but also clearly brainwashed into being a mass murderer by the system. Political commentator Gunther Eagleman, he responded saying, "The result of constant race baiting from the mainstream media." And Musk replied, "And in our schools and colleges." Ian Miles Cheong wrote, "Programmed/indoctrinated by CRT, DEI, anti-white decolonialism happening all over right now, most notably in South Africa, but liberals want to ignore it and pretend it isn't an issue." And he was referring, of course, to critical race theory and the agenda around so-called diversity, equity, and inclusion. Now, the findings raise some serious concerns, given that there have been an increase in numbers of crimes where it turns out, well, that murderers had expressed anti-white views, suggesting they were targeting people because they hated them based on their race, and it was white people. And they're targeting white people. And again, while this is becoming a discussion on the social level, news outlets and political actors, they've been writing it off. Crimes motivated by hate against white people are largely not being labeled as hate crimes. And since schools now teach that racism is about social status and economics, well, basically, and not about actual race, kids are being taught there's no such thing as racism when it's against white people. It's become a form of state-sanctioned hatred. Racism, right now, is being spouted from the system itself. And these hateful narratives are even being pushed in the public. Part of it is the DEI trainings that are being mandated in certain government workplaces, and also under corporate requirements in many cases. People have complained that they're forced to claim all white people are racists, and it's racism, essentially, under the disguise of anti-racism. And this form of social brainwashing is now showing its consequences. It doesn't end there either. In another recent incident, letters that were laced with deadly amounts of fentanyl were sent to election offices around the United States, including in Georgia, Nevada, California, Oregon, and in Washington. And given that fentanyl can be deadly in even very small doses, including when absorbed through the skin, they very well could have killed people. Now, election offices in some areas had to be evacuated even. The letter containing the deadly powder said this: "End elections now. Stop giving power to the right that they don't have. We are in charge now, and there is no more need for them." It also contained an ominous threat that, quote, "Be aware your ballot drop box are very susceptible to noxious chemicals and are unsafe to the public." In some instances, the powder did turn out to be baking soda, but in others, the substances tested positive as fentanyl proven. The letters also contained 3 logos, notably, which have been framed as being tied to Antifa. These include the homosexual flag, a satanic upside-down pentagram, and a third symbol showing 3 arrows pointing downwards. Now, that's from a 1931 Iron Front movement. That was an anti-Nazi organization of the Social Democratic Party of Germany. And it's been since used as a symbol of socialists and also anarcho-communists, and also by so-called anti-fascist organizations like Antifa. Now, while conservatives have tried calling for Antifa to be designated a terrorist group, given that they use terrorist violence as a way of achieving political goals, the violent leftist organization tends to operate with relative impunity and even some degree of political protection from their party. Of course, let's not forget about the socialist groups, including Democratic Socialists of America as well, that have been organizing protests against Israel and in many cases openly support Hamas. Representative Rashida Tlaib was censured in the House vote over her statements and following her involvement in a takeover of a building on Capitol grounds. Some Republicans, including Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, framed this as being similar to the January 6 riots. But the media and local law enforcement, they've largely excused it in this case. Now, in many instances, pro-Palestine protesters openly spread anti-Jewish hatred. This is from the political left, who had only recently been trying to preach to America about the problems of anti-Semitism. Lo and behold, where they're at now. And some Jewish groups are calling on universities to stop the anti-Jewish protests, given that some student protesters are openly calling for violence against Jews. And some students of Jewish descent have been too scared to even leave their rooms. Arkansas Attorney General Tim Griffin issued a public letter on Wednesday to Secretary of State Antony Blinken and also to Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. It was co-signed by the attorneys general of 9 other U.S. states, and it called for better vetting of foreign student visa holders, noting that many of them have terror ties, and also noted that they're looking for anybody who may have supported terrorist organizations, calling for them to be expelled. Similarly, many critics have pointed to a recent incident where pro-Palestine protesters took over the Capitol office of Senator Kristen Gillibrand. They chanted, "Rise up for Palestine." Watch.
Rise up for Palestine.
Rise up, rise up, rise up for Palestine.
Rise up for Palestine.
Rise up, rise up, rise up for Palestine.
And of course, many critics have also pointed to the double standards and how prosecutions against leftist riots tend to be handled. Folks, that's it for YouTube. For the rest of the episode, come join us on Epoch TV. We'll be talking with the Navy SEAL about standing up against the crazy mandates in the military and how they actually broke through them and won in the end. We'll also be talking about the new House Speaker and what we know about him. One of our journalists actually went to his hometown and has some interesting findings suggesting how he's going to lead the speakership. All that's on Epoch TV, EpochTV.com. I'll see you there for the rest of the episode. What use is a wall if the migrant crisis is being facilitated by the United Nations working with NGOs?
Many of the people that can't get visas to come, start off in Mexico, they start in South America.
Is this a coordinated effort? And if so, what's the motive?
Families coming across claiming asylum because they had children, but there was the same children every week. They started testing DNA to make sure that the children were in fact children of the parents. 30% weren't.
What's really happening at the U.S.-Mexico border?
These are all human smuggling cases from the past couple of weeks.
What caused the U.S. policy shift from mass immigration?